Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to my channel, Do Ministry Gaming, and today I'll be doing a build guide on the in-stacking Wander Deadeye character that I've been playing in 3.13 over the last few weeks. Now, as you can see from the intro highlight clips, this is a very strong, overall, well-rounded character, I would say. I would say it's above average when it comes to both bossing and mapping, and is all content viable. Now, before we dive into the build guide in detail, there's a few things I'll mention at a very high level. The first is there are different versions of the In-Stacking Wander out there. It's quite a popular build in 3.13. There are the Assassin and the Occultist versions, which I think are actually more popular than the Deadeye version. But I'm running the Deadeye just because of all the changes that they made to the Ascendancy class in 3.13, and I felt that it synergized with this particular type of character quite nicely, so I wanted to try it. I don't know which is the strongest. I can't say for sure, but I can certainly say that the Deadeye was quite nice. And it worked out pretty well. And the other thing is, this is not a unique build. This is not a Do Ministry build by any means. It is based off of a combination of all those other guys as well, and very largely based on Empyrean Gaming's Wander character that he played this league as well. Obviously, it's not nearly as geared as his. I'm a 350 exiles into my character here that I'll show you today. Which puts it in a very good spot when in terms of content. But you know, the helmet that MP is using is probably already worth more than my entire character put together. So there is definitely a difference in power level. There is definitely another level you can get to in terms of power level. But I'm pretty happy in terms of where my character's at currently. So I'll show you where it's at, and then just know that you can get even to the next level if you want to spend mirrors and mirrors of gear. And now that's the other thing I want to mention is that this character is quite expensive to run. You know, it didn't really feel particularly strong until I was in the 300x range when it comes to total invested into this character. Now, this is, of course, for 3.13 prices, which might be inflated. I don't know. Maybe this gear will be cheaper late sometime in the future. But what I'll say is it's expensive, and if you want to run this character, I would say be prepared to commit. You know, you might be 150, 200 exalts in, and it's not going to feel that great. And if that's the case, you just need to be mentally and financially prepared that you're going to need to spend maybe another 50 exalts at any time to improve the character to that next level. So by no means a league starter, by no means a cheap character. So, you know, decide on yourself when you want to run a character like this. Maybe it's near the end of the league when you've got a lot of money and you don't really know what to do with it. Then I would certainly say run it, because this is an enjoyable character to run. It feels quite satisfying once you get it up and running. You can see from the highlight clips, it does feel pretty good. And so now I'll move into, as usual, the basic build concept. This is an int stacking character, so you're going to be running a wand such as this one. I'll go into more detail in the gear section, but basically the second last line of this wand adds 1 to 6 lightning damage per 10 intelligence. You'll also be running an amulet such as this one. Second last line, again, 1% increased damage per 15 intelligence. And between these two, when you're stacking intelligence, then you're getting flat damage as well as percent increased damage. And that is the core of the damage from this build. Now that's just the base of the damage. You're then going to scale that with a number of different means. You're going to be scaling with crit multi, attack speed, penetration is a large one, exposure, number of projectiles, max power charges, curses, Wandslinger node on the tree as well. So a number of different mechanisms to scale that base damage off of, and so a lot of things that you need to invest in terms of scaling that damage up. Now, in terms of defensively, the in stacking is nice because you're going to be running CI as well, and with intelligence, you're also getting percent energy shield as a passive from the intelligence stacking, and so you're going to be able to reach a nice level of ES. And then when it comes to this particular character that we have built, you're also going to have some very nice dodge, some very nice block, as well as elemental ailment avoidance. You're going to be at 100% elemental ailment avoidance. So there's quite a few defensive layers on this character, and I will go through them in more detail throughout the guide. All right, onto the gem section here. We will be running for clearing, map clearing, kinetic blast. So you're going to link that with elemental damage with attacks, awakened if you can, damage on full life support. Damage on full life support works with CI when it comes to attack builds such as Wanders. And so you definitely want to put that into your build. It does not work with spell skills, okay? So this only works with characters like Wander, but if you are running a CI attack build, make sure you have damage on full life. And then you're going to run that with greater multiple projectiles, awakened if you have the means as well, of course, for the additional projectile. And so this is a 4-link kinetic blast. I do run it in these gloves, which I'll talk about in the gear section in detail, but basically these gloves make this an 8-link kinetic blast effectively. There are other options. You don't have to do it this way, but this makes it for quite a strong clear speed. So that is very nice. Then for the single target setup, you are running Power Siphon. Now, Power Siphon gets you 7 additional projectiles, the regular one. Then you want to run Anomalous Power Siphon, which I have here, which the quality actually gets you 1 more additional projectile. And so that puts you at 8. And then if you can afford it, then you'll even want to run a level 21 Anomalous Power Siphon, which can get you an additional projectile. So it gets you 9 now. And so depending on how much you want to invest, those are sort of the 3 different levels. The 21 Anomalous Power Siphon would be around 17x right now. So I just haven't done it. Didn't feel the need to in terms of where the character's at right now. So this is what I went with. Then you want to link that, of course, with Barrage for your single target. Then alongside damage on full life, again for the CI interaction, elemental damage with attacks, lightning penetration, and elemental focus, and awakened where you can, of course. Then the next for your auras, you want to run Vault Discipline. The Discipline aura will be on regularly, of course, but then the Vault Discipline would be nice. If you don't have to run the Vol, but it is nice to have. Then you run Wrath for the additional lightning damage. Precision, this is basically where your accuracy comes from, and then Enlighten to reduce the mana reservation. You're also going to run Herald of Ice, and the Herald of Ice is basically just kind of a nice little added damage and clear speed thing in terms of the Herald of Ice explosion, so it makes it quite a bit nicer. And then cast when damage taken and Steel Skin for a defensive layer. Now this is important here. This 3-link here are running Arcanist Brand, Wave of Conviction, and Sniper's Mark. Now if you haven't run this combination before, if you're some kind of bow character or wand character, anyone that uses an attack barrage setup for single target, make sure you explore and run this setup. It's a very nice. If you're not familiar with the Arcanist Brand, basically attaches to the enemy, and then every second it will activate one of the things that's attached to it. And so in this case, Wave of Conviction and Sniper's Mark. And so effectively what you're doing is you're attaching this to the boss, and then every second it will Wave of Conviction to get cast exposure, and then Sniper's Mark for the curse and the more damage, of course, multiplier from that. And so that's very nice. And you can see from my intro highlight clips, the boss kills, when both of these are active, the boss just melts and absolutely amplifies your damage output. So make sure you are running this setup. And then finally, there are a few more sockets you can run. I'm choosing to run up here in my helmet, Dash with Second Wind just for some movement. Summon Ice Golem, which I don't even have up most of the time, but is a nice little bonus on crit as well. And then Portal for the Portal Scrolls. All right, so now for the gear, I will start with the wand. Basically, the wand, there are a number of different mods that you can have on this. The critical mod that you must have is the lightning damage per 10 intelligence, and then the rest is just how you want to scale the damage on your wand. In my case, I have the flat lightning damage, which you can easily roll with essences if you want to craft your own wand. Then I got crit chance and crit multi and damage penetration. But basically, you're looking for a wand with the intelligence stacking mod plus a high attack speed, high crit chance, and then some additional damage onto it as well. Then the next I'll talk about, I guess, is the gloves. So the gloves, like I said here, is where I house my kinetic blast setup. And with these gloves, I've got basically an 8-link, 3 more supported gems, slower projectiles, faster attacks, faster projectiles, and then the 70 crit multi is effectively another gem as well, so it's effectively 8 link plus the T1 intelligence on these gloves. And if you can, even the fingerless silk gloves gives the increased spell damage, which is actually damage to this build when you're running the Wand Slinger node, which I'll explain in the passive tree when I go over that. But this is what I've chosen to run here. If you don't want to run this setup, I have seen people very successfully run a 4-link Kinetic Blast and just run, some nice ES, resist, intelligence, damage type gloves. So by no means do you need this, but this is what I've chosen to run. When it comes to the helmet, what you're going to want is the Power Siphon 2 additional projectiles helmet enchant. That is the best one, especially for the single target. And then when it comes to the rolls, you're going to want intelligence, percent intelligence, and nice ES roll on this helmet. Now, if you can afford it, you also want to run +1 max power charges on this helmet. But this helmet, without it, already with the enchant and percent T1 int, percent int, 250 ES, probably already around like 50 exiles or something. And so with the +1 max power charges, you're easily looking at 150 even plus. And so they are much harder to craft. And so if you have the means, go for it. But if not, something like this will do. Then I'll move on to the amulet. The amulet is where a lot of your stacking comes from as well. So the base amulet, if you can, go for the intelligence base amulet, but I've got the combo dex intelligence base amulet here. It's a little less intelligence, but it's also pretty good. But for the rolls, you're gonna want flat int, percent attributes. Now, it's very difficult to get an amulet with all 3 of those, and very expensive. That'll be hundreds of exiles. And so the one I have here, instead of flat int, I've gone with crit multi, which is also the suffix there. But if you can get that intelligence, increased intelligence and attributes. And some POBs might even say the crit multi is more damage than the flat int, but if you can, I guess go for all 3. And then when it comes to the prefixes, you definitely want that percent increased damage per 15 intelligence. And then other than that, it's up to what you want. I've got gain fizz as cold. That is actually not there by choice. It just happened to come with the amulet. When I can, I will remove that and basically try to craft on flat ES or something. And then I've got crafted a percent ES. And then, but the important thing here also is the blighted enchant. You're going to want to have tranquility. Tranquility giving you transfiguration of soul, which is increases in maximum energy shield. Also apply to spell damage at 30% value. And like I say, spell damage is damage as well. So that's actually a very powerful blight enchant. So make sure you have that. Onto the chest piece here. The chest piece, basically what you're looking for is intelligence, percent intelligence, and high energy shield is what I have here. So 660 T1 int, T1 percent int, and then I've crafted percent attributes. This chest piece was 50 exalts, I think, 40, 50 exalts, something like that when I bought it. You can get this even quite a bit nicer. I mean, top end ES can be 800 plus. You can also get this with Explodey as well as additional curse, which would be quite nice. Actually, additional curse can save you 3 points on the passive tree. And so if you want to go that way, you can and spend the money on that. But like I say, the more you have, the more it's going to cost. So that will be quite expensive. But the most important part of the chest piece is getting high energy shield, because that's where a lot of it comes from, especially if you're running gloves like these that don't have any, and boots like Skyforth, which don't have any, which I guess I'll talk about now. So for the boots, I've chosen to run Skyforth. Skyforth, everything on it is just nice about this build. So when you're running CI, one of your biggest issues is stun, and there's different ways to get around that. But I've chosen to run Skyforth, which puts your stun threshold, rather than based off of your life, which effectively would be 1. It is now based on 500% of your mana. So I've got 2,300 mana. So essentially this is my stun threshold is based off of basically 11,000 life. And so that basically takes care of stun. And then everything else on these boots is just quite nice. 6% reduced mana reserved is nice. Percent chance to gain power charge on crit is very nice. The movement speed, of course, at 30. and the additional mana. Now the enchant that I have on here is lightning damage. If I haven't killed recently, it's not the best one necessarily. It's okay. It's good for the build. There are better ones, but this just happens to be the ones that I have gotten on my boots from lab runs, so that's what I went with. In terms of gear, I haven't covered. Okay, so shield. Shield, this one here, Azir's Reflection is a very nice shield all around for this build. It's got a very nice int roll, a decent energy shield roll. The all res is very welcome. It's very hard to get resist on this build. I don't know if I talked about it yet, but because a lot of your gear, the suffixes are intelligence, percent intelligence, and if you roll in percent attributes as well, that's all of your suffixes. So on your helmet, you know, you've got 2 suffixes already, int, chest piece, 2 suffixes, int. On your amulet, you're not even going to have an available suffix for resist. If you're running, you know, gloves like mine, no, you know, no resist here. Headhunter, a popular, nothing, no resist there. Skyforge, no resist. So it's really hard to get resist. So 28 all res is actually quite welcome. And you're also going to be getting a lot of it on the tree through cluster jewels. So I'll show you that as well. So all res, very welcome. Then, of course, Hex Reflection, unaffected by curse, and effective curse is very nice. Just all around a very nice shield. You can alternatively, of course, run just a very nice high ES all res, you know, damage type shield with intelligence. That could be quite nice as well, a craftable one. But overall, this is quite nice. Then belt, I am running Headhunter here for the clearing. But if you don't want to run Headhunter, or if you're fighting a boss and you want to switch out, for example, you can run something like what I'm showing in my stash here. For the belts, you can now get synthesized implicit belts with percent increased intelligence. I would certainly say that is probably the best implicit you can get. It can go up to 15%, but with the attribute quality modifier on Catalyst, you can get that up to 18%. And then on the belt itself, you basically want to roll a nice intelligence roll and then fill it out with anything that you need. If you need resist, or if you need, if you want more ES, etc., etc. This is totally flexible as to what you want in terms of the way that I've got my character set up, because I'm running Headhunter. So however you'd like that belt to look. And then finally, for the rings, this is where you're going to top up your resist primarily. So for the rings, you want intelligence, resist as much as you can get. ES would be very nice. On one ring, you're going to need a curse on hit with conductivity. And so I've got that here, but primarily for both of your rings, intelligence, resist, ES, and then if you can, I mean, I've got crafted elemental damage with attacks, but if you can roll a T1 wed or elemental damage, those can go up to, I think, 50% or something like that. So very nice. But rings is very important to get your resists on your ring and the curse. All right, so for the flasks, we are running Bottled Faith for the increased damage and, of course, all the great offensive capabilities of this flask. Primarily the crit chance while you're on consecrated ground, and, of course, the increased damage on the consecrated ground, which is a more multiplier, essentially. Then we are running Rumi's Concoction. I love this flask. Gives you the up to 20% block on attacks and 10% chance to block on spells. And it really combos quite nicely with this character. If you look at the character sheet already, the chance to block already is at 32% from Azir's Reflection and all the passive tree nodes that we have for the shield and the block. So we're at 32%. When you use the flask, we're at 51% chance to block attack and 8% chance to block spells. And this isn't even a perfectly rolled Rumi's Concoction. It is fantastic defensive layer on top of everything else that you have in terms of avoiding ailments and what have you. Then we are going to run a Quicksilver Flask of Warding just for the movement speed there and the warding, of course. And then a Dying Sun. Additional projectiles is just amazing for both Kinetic Blast and Power Siphon. So I would say this is a must-have flask for sure, and the increased area is welcome as well for Kinetic Blast. And then finally, Cinder Swallow. You want to get the one rolled with the crit, of course, which would be a pretty good damage boost for the character. All right, so on to the passive tree here. I'll talk about the Ascendancy first. Like I say, I went with Deadeye because of the Ascendancy changes in 3.13 that I felt were very good for this build. The first is Far Shot. So far shot gets you that more damage multiplier when enemies are far away. But now also with the change, projectile barrages have no spread. So this is a very nice change to this particular build. In the past, if you're running barrage for single target, the enemy can't be that far away because maybe half your projectiles don't actually hit because of the spread on barrage. So in the past, you would run a barrage with the boss basically right up point blank, and you're running the point blank node for the more damage multiplier and making sure all the projectiles hit. But now, because there's no spread, you can run far shot, get the more multiplier from that, and still have all of your barrage projectiles hit. So it is a very nice change when it comes to single target. The next is running endless ammunitions. Um, with endless ammunitions, +2 projectiles benefits both kinetic blast and power siphon quite significantly. So that is just straight up very nice. Then, of course, if you're running Deadeye, Tailwind, I can't say no to that with increased effect. So that is another way to get your attack speed and movement and overall your damage up. So very nice node there. And then finally, make sure you get focal point, increases the effect of your mark. So your sniper's mark on that Arcanist brand single target setup is very nice. And this node is very nice for that. And like I say, if you've seen the highlight clips, when that sniper's mark is on, that damage multiplies quite significantly. So this is a very good Ascendancy node. Onto the tree itself as a Deadeye, you're going to path out here. Now, you can get this sort of southern stuff near the end of your build, I would say, but you do come down here, and the reason you're coming down here is primarily for the crystal skin cluster. This gets you a decent number of resists as well as the +1 max all res, but what's important about coming down here is the chance to avoid elemental ailments on all of these nodes. You're going to get 20% to all just from these two here, and then across these side ones, you're going to get a chance to avoid shock, avoid chill freeze, to avoid ignite, as well as avoiding straight up damage. So these are this is quite a nice cluster, but you're going to combo this with a bunch of other stuff on the passive tree to get to that 100% elemental ailment avoidance, which, if I haven't explained before, is super nice. This is ignite, scorch, chilled, frozen, brittle, shock, sap. Half of these you probably didn't even know were ailments, okay, or what they do. But you are immune to all those in this build, which is super, super nice quality of life. Now, as you're pathing, you're going to come out here, get the charisma node for the reduced mana reservation to fit all of your auras. Right here, you can run a fertile mind in this jewel socket. Lots of dexterity to convert into intelligence. This jewel, too, is probably the easiest way for you to get corrupted blood implicit as well, just because there's such an abundance of these jewels out there. So the most cost-effective way probably to get that. Then you're going to path over here, grab the cluster jewel. I'll talk about the cluster jewels at the end. You're going to path up here, make sure you grab this jewel socket, grab the power charge, very important power charges. Then you're going to come up here, you'll grab these ES nodes. You'll grab Arcane Swiftness cluster here. It's very nice for damage, block, and avoiding, topping off your avoiding elemental ailments as well when you have a shield. So this is a very nice cluster. You move over here for CI. Grab the Whispers of Doom. This is what I'm talking about in terms of additional curse. You need 3 points to get to this. Still worth it. But if you can get it on your chest piece or elsewhere, you can save yourself 3 points and put that quite nicely elsewhere as well. You can grab this cluster jewel up here, which, like, again, I'll talk about at the end. You're in path down here. Come get this jewel socket. This particular jewel socket is very nice to run a Thread of Hope in, if I can show you. Run it with the very large ring. Then you can grab Arcane Focus, which is very nice ES. Deep Wisdom, which is ES Intelligence. Foresight, which is very nice ES as well. Harrier, attack speed, movement speed. Attack speed being very good for this build. Overcharge, which is Power, Frenzy, Endurance Charge on kill, which is superb. And then Coordination, which is attack speed. So this is one of the nicest Thread of Hopes that you can get in this particular jewel socket. Then you're going to grab Arcing Blows, of course, for the lightning penetration. Then you're going to come up here, Throat Seeker for the crit multi. Come up here for Utmost Intelligence, 40 int and 8% increased intelligence. Very nice. The Wand cluster is super nice. This is primarily where you're going to get all of your accuracy and damage from wands as well. Come over here, make sure you grab spell Wand Slinger. A Wand Slinger is what converts spell damage to attack damage. And so everywhere you have spell damage on your gear, on your passive tree, you're going to turn into attack damage as well now. And Transfiguration of Soul. And then on top of that, come over here, grab Prodigal Perfection. Prodigal Perfection gives you spell damage and spell damage per mana. So this is a very nice node as well, comboed with Wand Slinger. Then, of course, over here and grab the Power Charge and the cluster, and the jewel socket. Now, as for the cluster jewels, we're going to start up here. You're going to run 2 clusters, basically. So for the large cluster jewels, the mandatory on the large cluster jewels, or not mandatory, but very nice to have, is Veteran Defender. Make sure you get this on both large cluster jewels. Like I mentioned before, resistances are extremely hard to top off in this build with the gear because you're stacking intelligence and attributes. And so this cluster is very nice for helping out with that, but also gives you all attributes, which is intelligence, which is nice, and increased defenses from a shield, which is also nice. Then for this particular cluster jewel, I chose to run Feel the Fight. You do need that somewhere to get that damage leached as mana, and attack speed is also very nice, so that's a very nice one. And the Martial Prowess, just nice damage node that gives you damage, attack speed, and accuracy. But this one, of course, is optional. You can get something else there as well. Now, for the jewel sockets, one, you are running Megalomaniac. You do have to run it if you want 100% elemental avoidance. The key node to get here is Elegant Form. It gives you the final 30% to avoid elemental ailments. If you don't have that, you will be short, and it will feel not as great. 100% is definitely where you want it, so make sure you get that. And then everything else is really optional. Ideally, you run Elegant Form. You also have Veteran Defender on this Megalomaniac as well for a second one. That is very expensive, probably not even existent at this point. Maybe I think there was one and it was worth a mirror. So, that's going to be a hard combo to get. So if you can't, drop that Veteran Defender and get that resist elsewhere. But if you can, that's very nice. Otherwise, get some additional damage nodes. There's lots of options. This happens to be the combination that I end up with that was affordable. And so I went with Storm Drinker, which is lightning penetration, which is a very nice damage increase, and opportunistic Fusillade, which is crit chance to wand and increased damage if you've crit recently. So, but these can be replaced with other damage nodes. There's a lot of options out there, so keep an eye out for those. But the one you want is Elegant Form on the Megalomaniac. Now, as far as the other regular jewel, try to get attack speed as much as you can and crit multi. Those are the 2 key damage ones. In this case, I've got attack speed, crit multi, and resist on this one particular jewel because I needed it to top up my resists. However, down here, we're running attack speed, crit multi, damage, attack speed, crit multi, damage. So basically any combination of attack speed, crit multi, and damage you can get, with the most important ones being attack speed and crit multi. And now for this large cluster jewel, I've got, again, Veteran Defender. Then the other 2 I went with is Advanced Guard, which gives you increased damage and movement speed, and then Smite the Weak, which gives you maim. So that is quite nice. All right, and so in terms of Pantheon, I'm running Soul of Lunaris for the projectile avoidance and some more dodge, on top of already all of the defensive layers that you have in terms of block and elemental element avoidance, so that's quite nice. And then I'm also running Soul of Ralakesh, which gets you cannot be blind, cannot be maimed. So why not avoid a few more other things on top of all the things you're avoiding already? And then in terms of the bandits, I have run 2 skill points for the bandits. For the passive tree. Now, if you are short on resistances, running Alira also is not terrible. Alira giving you 15 all res and 15 crit multi, something like that, and some mana regeneration. Basically, it gives you additional all res and crit multi, which for 2 equivalent to 2 passive points is actually not bad. I ran that for quite a while before I was able to top up my resist without it. So make sure you run that if you're having some troubles on resist, because the crit multi itself is good damage. All right, everybody, that is a wrap for the build guide on this Int Stacking Wander Deadeye character. I do have a POB in the description below if you want to look at that and when building your own version of this. As usual, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. Also stream on Twitch Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Times are in the description below. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.